Warning: this podcast may be disturbing to some listeners. Due to the graphic nature, listener discretion is advised. Welcome from wherever you are. This is the Demon Inside podcast. I am your host, John Benham. If you would like to review another episode of the Demon Inside, you can go to Spotify, Apple Music, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and any podcast platform. And please, don't forget to subscribe and rate us with 5 stars. A new episode will come out once a week. We will be right back after a word from our sponsors.
I spoke with one man who told me he's been a patient of Tony's for years. He said he saw him at this very location around Thanksgiving. He also spoke about the kind of man Tony was and the man the community knew.
I'm sick to my stomach a little bit, not really sure why, I just kind of want answers.
Answers the entire Colchester community has been looking for ever since the Todt family was reported missing more than a week ago. A Facebook page was shared by residents throughout town looking for answers after the Todts and their 3 young children had not been seen or heard from in over a week.
When I first saw the missing group, I was definitely alarmed because I hadn't seen Tony for a long time, actually, well over a month, and I myself was wondering, where he had been and why he hasn't been coming back.
Austin O'Brien is a patient of Tony's. He told me he's been going to Tony for physical therapy since he was in high school. He told us he knew the family had moved to Florida, but Tony had been back and forth, still seeing patients in Colchester.
Right before Thanksgiving, I'd just seen him, probably my last visit with him. He worked on me. Not as talkative as he usually is. He was kind of on his phone a lot.
Austin says that was very unlike Tony. He was a friendly man who often spoke about his children.
Tony knows that I have a newborn, and, we had been talking about that for a long time. He always talked about his children and his family, and even just giving me tips and stuff for my newborn.
Austin was one of many patients surprised to get a call from the office in December, canceling appointments for the time being. A sign still hangs on the door today, stating the office is closed. In Colchester, Ashley Afonso, Fox 61 News.
Hello, my Demon Insiders, and welcome back to the Demon Inside. I'm your host, John Venom, and today we are going to be talking about the Demon Inside, Anthony John Todt. Now, his friends called him Tony, so throughout the show, I'll call him Tony. Before I start, I want to send a couple of shout-outs. So the first shout-out I'm going to send is to Catherine, who was a Uber customer that I had that I drove home. And the next one is Joshua, who I drove from the airport to a Airbnb, and both of these people, I'm so sorry I started talking about my podcast, and I actually had to play them like the trailers and stuff, and I think they both freaked out, but I promised them a shout out, so that's what I'm doing right now. So let's get back to the show. So let me give you a warning, because this is a father and a husband who killed his wife and his 3 children. Now, his children were ages 13, 11, and 4. It was 2 males and 1 female. And the female was 4 years old, which is really sad. And he also killed the family dog. So if you're very sensitive to these materials that I'm going to start talking about, I suggest not listening to this podcast. I'm going to try to keep it more true crime, but at the end, of course, I'm going to throw out some supernatural things that I found. Plus, it kind of was similar to the last podcast that I did on Michael Miller. And it's also similar to the killings that happened in Brownsville with John Allen Rubio and his wife, Angela Camacho. Tony Todt met a girl in middle school who would later, they would be married together and own a business together. Now, they were both physical therapists, and Tony was a very kind, very loving, very talkative person, and not just with his family. I'm talking with the whole community where they were living in Colchester, Connecticut. This is a guy that would do physical therapy, not just in his practice, but also if somebody needed him, he would do it sometimes for free. He was a very loving, very giving person. He also was a youth soccer coach. And Tony, from what people say that knew him, said that this guy was just the best person. They also talked about his wife, Megan. And Megan was a yoga instructor. She was a physical therapist as well. She helped him start the business. And she was a loving mother who actually, according to friends and family, she was a very nice, loving person who homeschooled her kids. This was probably one of those crimes that people, which they have had a very hard time trying to figure out what happened. So in 2017, Tony and Megan had 3 children, like I said, 13, 11, and 4. And Megan started looking into new religions. She started to get into this type of religion that was kind of like Hinduism. But the religion that she was on was actually, they were Skyping their religious beliefs back and forth to them. Now, according to Tony, he wasn't really into the religion as much as she was. This was in 2017. By 2017, things started taking a turn towards a darker side. Tony had his practice for so long, over 20 years or something like that, along those lines. But as of 2017, he was starting to get under investigation by the FBI. Now, they were saying that a lot of what was happening was he was double charging clients, that basically he was saying that they were coming in and doing their physical therapy when they were not. And he was charging for that, and they were going to arrest him on insurance fraud. This was coming up to 2019. So from 2017 to 2019. Now, the way it sounds is we're talking millions and millions of dollars. No, we're talking thousands of dollars. This guy was actually covering everything that he was doing. He was paying loans. He had a lot of loans out. He had a lot of, basically, for me, this guy's business ethics weren't as good as his physical therapy. I think he was a better physical therapist than he was a businessman when it comes to keeping the books. And so he started doing the traditional, I'll get a credit card to cover these bills. I'll get a credit card to cover these bills. And that's what he was doing up until a point where he started overcharging to try to make up some of the money. Now, he was in debt, but he was only in debt about $100,000. Now, it seems to us like a lot. Like for me, $100,000 is pretty much the world to me. But with the physical therapy practice with him and his wife, and he had 2 physical therapy businesses that were running, and he had just bought new medical equipment to help his business grow, which kind of put him more in the hole. And like I said, he started using more and more credit cards. Now, here's the thing. And this is why the police think that this is why he killed his family. But I don't think that's why, because he could have easily called bankruptcy. He could have moved his practice to a different location. Now, let me get back into this. So he was in Connecticut. His wife was feeling sick because she had Lyme disease from a tick that she got. And they ended up moving to Florida. And they were in Florida for a couple of years. And Tony would travel back and forth during the week to run his practice, which is a lot of money. I don't know why he didn't just sublet his company or run it from Florida. But like I said, he wasn't a really good business person at this point. And a lot of business owners, what they like to do is try to keep control over their business, and they don't want to release that control. So this was one of the reasons he kept flying back and forth. Now, the reason that they moved to Florida was because, like I said, his wife, Megan, was feeling sick, and Florida's weather was a lot better for her sickness. Now, this is according to Tony. I couldn't find anything that said diseases that she had or whatever, because Tony comes out with a whole list. The only thing that I know for sure, and this was through the autopsy, was that she had Lyme disease. Now, I looked up Lyme disease. Sometimes it gives you hallucinations. It causes pain. There's a lot of things that go with Lyme disease. But for me, it's kind of weird that it took over her whole life for years, because supposedly it happened in 2011 when she got Lyme disease. And we're talking about 2017 all the way to 2019 when they lived in Florida. And supposedly she was fine with it. But Tony kept saying that she was getting weaker and weaker. Why that was happening, I don't know. But I think it had to do more with her new religious beliefs. Now, the reason I say that is because she thought that the end of the world was going to happen in December 28th of 2019. Now, according to her, she said that her family had been cursed, that her family lineage needed a carbon burning to be reincarnated. Basically, she was saying that this religion was teaching her that if she died, or if the kids died, or whoever, that they would be reincarnation. She was also studying a book called The Medical Medium, which was giving her different holistic types of remedies. Here's something that was kind of freaky, but before I tell you this, let me just say this. When Megan told him she had a vision while meditating, telling her the end of the world was beginning with a virus attack and eventual invasion, she said he would be captured and killed. She would be granted salvation when the boys' souls were released. Now, Megan died around the end of December of 2019, okay? She said that this virus was going to take over. This virus was going to happen. Now, let me remind you guys, here's something for the supernatural. Let me remind you, COVID happened December 31st of 2019. She was predicting that the end of the world was going to happen on the 28th of December through a virus. December 31st, COVID is mentioned and started. Now, this religion also had signs of Greek and Egyptian beliefs, which we've gone over before through other shows where an Egyptian belief pops up. But let me continue. So I have a lot of recordings of Tony talking about how he killed his kids. This is very hard, guys. I'm just letting you know now. And I have to let you listen to this because it's going to help you understand that this guy is either possessed and he doesn't know what happened, or he's on a mental breakdown, or like a code killer. But here's the thing. He lived with his family for a month, almost a month, while they were decaying in the house, in the bedroom where he was going to sleep. So let's start off with the first killing. I'm going to play that now.
Woke up at 11:30 at night. We set the alarm for 11:30 at night, and got up out of bed. And it was Zoe first.
Okay.
Meg walked into the room, then she walked back into her room.
Step by step. So you guys are sleeping in the master room, I'm assuming.
Yes, my boyfriend, I guess, and the dog.
And the puppy. Okay. Which boy was upstairs?
Zoe was upstairs in her room.
Okay.
Alec was upstairs in his room. Tyler was asleep downstairs in the library room.
And why again was he down there?
The two of them were sick, so we kept them apart.
Okay. All right. So, okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. So we walked to the door, Zoe's door. Meg and I hugged and kissed, and pretty much, you know what you need to do. Come back at me when we're done. So I went in Zoe's room, and it took me 2 or 3 hours sitting there because it's a tough. But the everlasting salvation and the thought of that everlasting salvation was there, and I needed to save her soul, wanted her to be with us. Megan kept coming in. What's going on? Like, it'll be done in a little bit. It'll be done in a little bit. It's getting past that. I'm not that guy, you know. But then she rolled and started squiggling, and I put my hand over her mouth, and then put a pillow over top of her. So she went, and then she started to fade away. And I just held that until there was no motion left.
So you didn't lay on her?
I did lay on her when she lay on her belly. I'm sorry. I laid on her to keep her down, and I put the pillow on top.
Okay. So now Zoe is deceased. And what happens next?
Walk out. Stood with Megan in the room for a little while.
How was the body?
How do you mean?
How was the positioning? Where was the pillow?
There was a pillow behind her head, and her hands were out to the side, and I made sure the covers were on top of her, just in essence to keep her warm.
Did she have anything in her hands?
No, I had put a rosary in her hands later on when I moved.
So after he killed his daughter, he goes into his son's room, his oldest son, and I'm going to play that for you now.
So Zoe's gone. You and Megan console each other, whatever you guys have to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happens?
We go into Alex's room.
Alex's room?
Yes. The one next to the bathroom, the one upstairs.
Well, upstairs.
Yeah. And beforehand, we had talked about the aspect of she's got to hold his feet down, and I'll do the stab.
How old's Alec?
13.
Okay, so he's the oldest.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what happens?
We walk in. He's on his back. She's just sitting there holding his feet together. We're just in there, just eyeing each other, just gaining the confidence, I guess, you know. And I go to, I stabbed him, and he started kicking. Was trying to get up, and he kept rolling. So I ended up putting there was a pillow there, and I put a pillow in the back of his head so he wouldn't hit me with the back of his head. And then I reached around with my hand and held his nose in his mouth. And he kept rolling and kicking and rolling and kicking, and then it eventually stopped.
Where was Megan at?
Megan left midway through there and went back to the room.
Okay. All right. How long would you say it took to kill Alec?
That one I have no idea. It went quickly, but I don't know.
Okay. And there was blood and everything in his bed?
On his bed, yes.
Where did you stab him?
In the stomach, the same spot.
Now, after he kills his son, he goes downstairs to kill his second son, who's the 11-year-old. Listen to this.
Time, but okay. So Alec is gone. What happens after that?
I walk into the room, Meg and I console ourselves, and she turned to me, she goes, "We have to finish this, there's one more left, let's go, before the sunlight comes up." Okay, so she says, "I'm going to go downstairs. I'm going to stand," because the way the downstairs is, I don't know if you saw the house.
Mm-hmm.
Once you got it, my Tyler is the strongest kid, and my Tyler is the quickest kid. And if you got out of the room by chance, it wouldn't help the situation.
Why not?
Because we wouldn't be able to catch him, hence we wouldn't be able to all go together.
Was there fear like maybe he would
Get away.
like outside of the home, like alert neighbors or something? Or?
Yeah.
Okay. So it was almost like a quick, I don't want to say like an attack, but it was a quicker movements with him.
Yes. The same thing. Megan stood outside the door, just in case, so the door couldn't open.
Mm-hmm.
And I had gone in, and he was laying on his laying parallel. He was laying on his left side. And I was able to get in and get the knife right in there. I got it. It started bleeding quite a bit, but then being strong, he kept moving. So then again, I had to put a pillow on top of my hand, and he went really, really, really quick.
So a lot of blood.
I didn't see much blood because I had it covered up, like how much blood came out. I could feel the blood coming out because it was all over my hand, but it was blood.
Now, after that, he says that he killed the family dog because Megan wanted the dog to die with them.
All right. So Tyler is killed. Who's in the room when he's killed?
It's just me and Tyler. Megan is outside in the door.
What is she saying during any of this?
She's doing meditations.
Was she drinking or consuming anything that would maybe
Not at that point, no.
bring her down? Because it's just a lot for a parent to go through.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot for a human being to go through, let alone a parent. Okay.
But we had salvation in mind. We had to grade it, and that's. In
I
all
got
honesty, we love our kids, and it's sad.
I got you. I understand. Okay. So now all the children are gone. How long until the sun comes up?
I don't know. It might be about 5 o'clock in the morning. Around that time.
Was the sun coming up like part of a rule or anything like that? Because you mentioned it a couple times that Megan told you that you have to do this before the sun comes up. Is there a reasoning behind that?
I don't know why the reasoning was behind that, but it had to be done before the sun came up. Yes.
Okay. So it's nothing during your research or investigations or anything like that that has.
Nothing per mine. I don't know what was on her side, research and whatnot.
Okay.
I was just told it needed to be done before the sun came up.
Okay. All right. So they're all deceased. What do you guys do?
Go up to the bedroom. Just started talking. How do we want to? The kids are dead. What do we want to do now? What's going on? What's our next step? What are we gonna do?
You mean this wasn't planned?
It was planned, but it was like just the dog. Did she want to go first? Let me go sit. Because there was some discussion of me going first and her staying last. Her going first. She wasn't sure which one she wanted to do. So we decided that the dog. We wanted the dog with us. So she held the backside of the dog down, and I put the I call them Mexican blankets. They're like these blankets around, and then I was able to hold the knot in her snout and her nose closed, and she went peacefully. Picked her up, put her in her bed, and then Meg was like, I want to go next, I want to be done. And then whatnot.
So you just suffocated the dog? So if there was any type of marks or anything like that on the dog, you wouldn't know anything about it?
What kind of marks were on the dog? I just suffocated the dog.
You didn't stab the dog?
I didn't stab the dog.
There's a stab wound on the dog.
That's interesting because I didn't stab the dog.
Okay. Well, there was a stab wound on the dog. The dog was collected as well.
I don't know.
Okay.
I doubt.
I mean, it's neither here nor there. I'm just telling
No,
you that that's one of the discrepancies that I've noticed in the statements. Okay. All right. So you kill the dog. Didn't you say you like put it in its bed or something like that? What did you place in that?
The bed, we wrapped it in the blanket, whatnot, and put it underneath the bedside table in her bed.
Her. Okay. What was her name?
Breezy.
Breezy. Okay. Did you immediately? I'm sorry. Where did you kill the dog at?
It was on the foot of the bed on Megan's side.
In the master room.
That's correct.
Okay. And that was the final resting spot was in the master bedroom, correct?
Correct.
And then he comes now, after he kills the dog and the kids, he's saying that he stabbed them, trying to get them to bleed to death, but in reality, he stabbed them after they had already died. And when we talk about the dog killing, he doesn't remember stabbing the dog at all. He says that the dog died peacefully as he suffocated the dog and that Megan helped him. Now, according to the autopsy, the dog was stabbed 11 times. There's a part of his confession that he says, and he clearly, you can hear him trying to figure out why that happened. He was like adamant that he didn't stab the dog. He talks about stabbing the kids, but he doesn't talk about stabbing the dog. It doesn't make sense. I mean, he already did the worst to the kids, but he's not going to say that he stabbed the dog. He says he doesn't remember. So let me continue on.
She started taking that a little bit. Gave her the knife. I laid next to her and she put the knife into her stomach. Okay. And I said, "Did you hit the spot?" It's right here. "Yeah, I feel it." Okay. We're laying there for 45 minutes. It's supposed to take about 10 minutes, what everybody says. If you hit the spot.
And what is in that spot? What are you talking about?
The
What
inferior
spot?
vena cava.
Okay.
On the umbilicus. You're supposed to be able to bleed out. They say 1 to 4 minutes, but under 10 minutes.
And what are you specifically targeting within that area?
The inferior vena cava.
Okay.
It's the big blood return. Okay. It's a large vessel and you bleed out in your abdomen. It's quick. We were laying there for about 45 minutes. After she stabbed herself, she says, "I feel nothing happening. Nothing happening." I said, "Okay, this is good. What do you want to do?" She said, "Do we have any Benadryl?" I said, "We have liquid Benadryl." She goes, "Let me have that. Let me try some of that. Maybe that'll put me to sleep or let me go sooner." Mm-hmm. So she was drinking liquid Benadryl. And I was checking back on her, give her some peace. Walked around, came back. Walked around, came back. And at one point I thought she had passed from doing the Benadryl. Nope, she was still there, and she had sat up.
What makes you think she passed?
She was very quiet. There was no motion. I couldn't see her abdomen going up and down. This is from afar, without even me going up to see her. Okay?
Was her eyes open?
Eyes were closed.
Was she communicating with you?
When I came up, I was like, "Meg?" She was like, I'm here. I said, "Okay." And that wasn't happening, so she decided to go through her liver. Okay, I pulled up the thing and the hepatic liver. We laid it out on where it was on her skin, according to landmarks. And I said, "It's right in this area." So okay, then she with 2 hands pushed in, and you heard like a little click, as if it went through something. Okay, so I was like, "Okay, sounds like it went through the liver. That's good." Okay, she pulled it out. She put the knife right next to her. And I just laid with her. And I laid there and held her. And we just waited. It seemed like hours went by and nothing else happening. I got up. I wanted to check on our boys and our little one and make sure everything was going okay in the house. Everything was okay. Came back and she's sitting up at the edge of the bed. And she's cleaning the wound. I'm like, and she was like, this has got to be done. This is taking too long. This is ridiculous. I'm like, shall we go on, look at different other aspects to do this? How do you want to do this? She goes, I want this ended now. I said, what does that mean? She goes, I want you to take the pillowcase, put a pillow, and put it over my head. I said, I don't know if I can do that. And she looked at me. She goes, if you love me, you can do this. I want to be with my babies. And so and she just looked at me. And she goes, you're strong enough. You can do it. Okay. So I said, why don't you take some more Benadryl, so at least you're not going to fight me, and I'll do it. So she goes, what better? She took some more Benadryl, and maybe about 15 minutes later, I came back in the room. I said, you still want to do this? And she talked to me like that, very far out. Yeah, get it done.
After he kills all 3 kids, and after he kills the dog and his wife, he tries to kill himself 8 different times, and he cannot do it. Now, while he's, and I forgot this, let me go back for a second. While he's killing the kids, his wife is saying that they need to hurry up and they need to kill the kids before sunlight. Now, this struck me kind of weird too, because he and his wife bought toys for Christmas for the kids. Why would you do that if you knew you were going to kill the kids before Christmas? And he says he killed the kids before Christmas. So was there a higher power telling them that they needed to kill the kids at a certain time? Because they didn't really know when they were going to do it. They just knew they were going to do it. And then all of a sudden, Megan starts saying that they had to do it before sunlight.
Around that time?
Was the sun coming up like part of a rule or anything like that? Because you mentioned it a couple times that Megan told you that you have to do this before the sun comes up. Is there a reasoning behind that?
I don't know why the reasoning was behind that, but it had to be done before the sun came up. Yes.
Okay. So it's nothing during your research or investigations or anything like that has.
Nothing per mind. I don't know if it was on her side, research or whatnot. I was just told it needed to be done before the sun came up.
Okay.
Now, she also came out and said, according to Tony, that it was going to help them spiritually go to heaven and be safe. He actually thinks that this is a spiritual journey and not a sacrifice. He even says a sacrifice. He goes, this was not a sacrifice.
How we led up to where we're at right now.
Okay. For a while, my wife had started. She began watching these videos, talking about the afterlife, talking about salvation, talking about how families go and stuff.
Slow down a little bit right now. I'm just having a hard time keeping up with you. I'm sorry. That's okay. And speak up.
And in watching these videos and watching everything going on, she presented them to me, and I started watching them with kind of a uneasy, like, yeah, whatever. And the more and more we watched, the more and more I gained an understanding that there is more than this life here. Mm-hmm. A higher level of consciousness. Mm-hmm. And then we started researching, and then we started finding more about the world is coming to the end, the apocalyptic end, and that a family is going to be separated and enslaved, and to avoid this, to all go together. Okay.
You mean die together?
Die together. That's correct.
Okay.
Okay. So, because my wife's been chronically ill for a while, this really appealed to her, and because it appealed to me also, because she wouldn't be in any pain, family wouldn't be separated. Mm-hmm. There would be no more sorrow, no more heartbreaking, no more anything. It would be a salvation and everlasting life. Okay? Mm-hmm. So we kept doing our research, reading up things, meditating, and decided that, yeah, this should be a thing. This should be what we should do. Okay? We had sat down and talked with the boys and Joey just on different things about, death and the way what would happen if mommy died, how would you feel, what happened when daddy died, what would you feel? And the consistent responses was like, we don't want you to die, we want to die with you.
So when the FBI finally located him, we're talking about, he did all this before January. According to him, he had already killed his kids between the 14th or the 18th of December. By January 13th, the FBI was already on him. And this was because of the fraud, the insurance fraud. By the time the police went into the house, this was already January the 13th, and everybody was dead except for Tony. When they go into the house, they ask Tony where his family's at. He says that his wife is upstairs. She's sleeping. He says that the kids probably went to a friend's to sleep over, but he doesn't remember. When the FBI goes in and they see the dead bodies, of course, they arrest him and they take him in. And all of a sudden, he starts saying that he saw his wife, Megan, talking to the police, the FBI. I'm going to play that for you.
I don't remember.
Okay.
I don't know why I was sitting on the front porch.
Yeah, I guess you were seen out on the front porch, and then they went and made contact with you inside or something.
And then I also remember seeing Megan out there talking to you guys, which wasn't true. No, I know, but I'm just telling you what, it's like, so I don't, that's why I don't quite.
But now that it's been a couple of days, you've probably got a better recollection of what transpired that morning.
I don't have too much of a recollection that morning, honestly.
Well, I mean, looking back, I can tell you now she's deceased.
No, I know.
So we know she wasn't talking.
Correct, yeah.
So do you remember when they come in the house, do you remember what you told them?
No.
Okay. All right.
I don't.
All right.
So here's my question. Was this a mental breakdown because people were coming after him to arrest him for fraud? Now, he knew about the fraud, and he said that Megan knew about the fraud, and he moved when he was going back and forth to Florida. He wasn't trying to hide. He had actually told the FBI when they came into his office in Connecticut, and I forgot to tell you this, but when they went into the office around Thanksgiving time, he knew they were there doing an investigation. He didn't run. He didn't hide. He told them exactly where he was at. He told them that he was going to come back. He was very cooperative. His employees were very cooperative. Nobody knew this was going to happen. And from some parts, even Tony didn't know this was going to happen. Now, after these crimes were committed, and he says that he doesn't remember anything from the time that Christmas came around, before Christmas, to the time that he was arrested.
I don't remember anything pretty much over Christmas and the first week I got here. I don't remember coming here.
This was what Anthony Todt told a relative in February, just weeks after police charged him with the killing of his wife, 3 children, and a dog in Celebration, Florida. Investigators say he had been living with their decomposed bodies in the home for several weeks. The Colchester physical therapist sounding confused on the phone call, saying all he remembers is waking up at the hospital. He then asked his relative if she has spoken to his attorney yet.
She wouldn't tell me anything because I feel like I've had to. It's really hard on this side trying to just see if you're okay.
I don't even know what is going on.
Keep in mind, guys, he was living with the family as they were dead, and he was sleeping in their bed. Think about this. For almost 3-4 weeks, he didn't try to run. He didn't try to hide. He didn't change his name. He was living with the dead bodies of his wife and kids, and he wasn't denying killing them in his interview. So why, when they arrest him, after he gives them all these confirmations of what he did, how he did it, you heard the police interrogation. Why all of a sudden did he say, I don't remember anything? Could his interrogation have been his demon talking? Which was kind of weird to me because I was trying to find a different tone of voice that Tony would have. The only thing that I could really find is when Tony was talking, he was breathing heavy when he was talking to his sister on the phone. When he was talking to the police, he was not breathing heavy. Now, let me tell you this too. When Tony started changing, that everybody kept saying that he was changing in 2017, Tony started gaining a lot of weight. So much weight that you couldn't even recognize him. After he was arrested and after he was in prison for a little bit, he lost that weight and he got back to his normal self, according to his sister. Could this demon have been changing him little by little, or was Megan the one that was listening to this demon and he was just following her up until he killed her or she killed herself and this demon jumped inside of him? As far as the supernatural, was that he kept saying that during these killings, Megan was meditating. Why would she be meditating while her husband is killing her kids? And why would he be killing the kids if he was in his right frame of mind? Was this demon influence? Was this demon possession? I'm not sure, to be honest with you. This is, like I said, the same thing that happened with Michael Miller. It's kind of similar to that. You're talking about a guy that had no history of violence, no criminal records. He even says that he still loves Megan and he loves the kids and he misses the kids and he wants to die to be with them. What can cause a person to do that? He says he tried to kill himself 8 different times, but it failed. Was that the demon trying? Was that himself trying? To be honest, for me, I think these religions that she was listening to on Skype are very dangerous. And they lead to false prophets and they lead to false gods. And that's where the demons come in and try to manipulate to the point where you think, or the parents think, that the best way to save themselves and their children is to kill everybody. These demons like to lie and manipulate and put things in people's heads that they think is real, and it's not. And when you're looking and you're focused on one thing, like the end of the world, that's when you give in. And we all know that, yes, COVID happened, but it wasn't the end of the world. We keep moving on. Thanks for listening, guys. Have a good one. I'll talk to you all next week. Don't forget to subscribe to the Demon Inside podcast on any podcast platform. A new episode of the Demon Inside will be released every week. Let us know what you think of the episode on all our social media platforms. If you have any questions or comments, go to the Demon Inside podcast at gmail.com or click on the link down below. We would love to hear from you. And to become a Demon Insider, go to our website, thedemoninsidepodcast.com. We thank you for listening and hope you will join us next week for a new Demon Inside podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please tell your friends. I am John Venom, and I'll see you next time, if I don't get possessed. The Demon Inside was written and created by James Porter. It is a production of Venomous Entertainment. Background music is by Lucas King.